beds, leather for enchanting, and maybe even sugarcane if we're lucky. So after beginning the next generation in the line of Ben the Boss Oak Tree Products Incorporated, I flattened the island by mining slower than my dad when he went to the store to get milk, before upgrading to a proper excavator. I then began on my first real estate endeavor and constructed our first property. I mean, it may be a bit dirty, but it'll do the trick. Laugh now, I command it. Please get out. Thank you. Know your place. Yeah, unfortunately, it'll probably only sell for like 2.1 million, but they can all be winners. I then added a front door to our property. You'll be fine out there. Don't worry. Don't worry. Nothing bad is gonna happen. And then began excavating a tunnel into the Earth's crust. The plan. Oh, sorry, I forgot to provide a proper warning. It's now time for the plan. Step 1. Begin agricultural enterprise. Status complete. Step 2. Become a homeowner. Status impossible. Step 3. Obtain iron armor and tools. In progress. I didn't get any iron, but I did obtain fossil fuels so I can increase my carbon footprint. I don't know what carbon footprint is, but it sounds cool, so I want more of it. After spreading the light of Jeebus across our island and cooking up a midnight snack, we had officially survived one day on a deserted island in Minecraft Hardcore, so I'll make sure to put that on our resume. Isn't that right, you disgusting beast? No one likes you. You have no friends. I then dove into the depths to depopulate the local oceanic population and the local underwater vegetation on the morning of day 2. After acquiring sustenance, it was time for step 4, expand the island. I began by constructing, or I guess destructing, a basement for our dirt mansion to collect an amassment of dirt, and then began placing it in around the island. Then I found lapis? Yeah, I was a bit confused by this, but apparently lapis can spawn as high as Y64, which is crazy, but anyways, I continued the expansion of our landmass and tree farm enterprise for the rest of the day, and then epically upgraded our tool set on the morning of day 3. Unfortunately, our island is still smaller than Eckhart Tolle's ego, but we needed to be larger than One Piece's episode count. So I returned to placing cubic meters of dirt with my bare hands, faster than AI is gonna take my job. Once I ran out of dirt, I absolutely skedaddled into the mines and began destructing the most convoluted tunnel you'll ever see, and then found this cool water cave that led into the ocean. Awesome. I then went back to hacking at stone until I found this patch of dirt, of which I began extracting. I then resurfaced and went back to constructing a literal island, again with my bare hands. Although I'm not 100% sure that I have hands, because I am an axolotl. Once my construction materials were depleted, I headed back into the mines to obtain more. I then finally found iron on the morning of day 4. I scurried back up to the surface and smelted up my newfound profits to create a brand new pickaxe, a bucket, and a shield. Then I chopped down a tree and used the rest of the iron to make an iron shirt and an iron stick. I then headed back into the mines and continued losing brain cells faster than an iPad kid playing Clash of Clans while scrolling through TikTok simultaneously, until I decided to head down to Deep Slate level, which is when I basically immediately ran into a mine shaft. I decided to conquer my cowardly nature and jumped into action, and I pretty quickly found our first vein of shiny blue rocks, which I promptly defended and then collected. I then went around breaking a bunch of cobwebs for string, which we can use to craft wool for a bed. After a bit more exploring and profit collection, however, my block game induced anxiety meter was higher than your screen time, so I absolutely traversed my way back up to the surface faster than the speed of light. I then got a job as a lumberjack for a short while before constructing our first diamond pickaxe and using the string we got to craft our first bed. I then decided to sleep. So it's now day 5 and it's time to fully complete step 4. So I crafted some more iron armor and tools and headed back into the mine, and I pretty quickly hit a gravel patch, which I promptly destructed. You see, gravel can be used to craft coarse dirt, and coarse dirt can be turned back into dirt with a hoe, which effectively turns 2 dirt into 4. And you can continue this process as much as you want as long as you have enough gravel. So after fully demolishing both a gravel and a dirt patch, I headed back up to the surface and crafted a bunch of coarse dirt, and got to work placing it into the island and converting it into dirt. And since we're gonna need a lot of dirt to build the whole island later on, and funnily enough, gravel is more available to us than dirt via the bottom of the ocean, we're gonna be using this method a lot. I did that until I ran out of coarse dirt, and then expanded our tree farm some more. I then used the iron we got from our underground business venture to complete our full set of iron armor and tools, completing step 3. So it's now time for step 5, but I'll explain more about that in 73.8 seconds. For now, I just continued expanding our tree farm enterprise a bit for the rest of the day, and then almost destroyed our dirt hut on the morning of day 6. But I realized I was a despicable human being for even thinking of committing such an atrocious act. So I rebuilt it and then headed back into the mines. You see, we not only need to get dirt to expand the island as quickly as possible for wandering traders and wood, but we also need to get enough blocks to build a mob farm as quickly as possible, because a mob farm is actually our ticket to getting villagers, because of zombie villagers. I'll explain more later, later, but for now, after destroying this dirt and gravel patch that was larger than my ego, I resurfaced again, crafted up some more coarse dirt, and continued constructing the island. I then began chopping down trees, clearing leaves, and replanting saplings to further franchise our tree farm corporation. Trees kept growing, so I continued that process until basically the whole island was covered in saplings. And then I headed back into the mine to collect the rest of the dirt and gravel patch I left behind earlier. Then on the morning of day 7, I went back to placing dirt into the island, and with that, we're basically done with step 4, and can fully move on to step 5 of our epic plan, the mob farm. So I ate a ribeye medium rare, and then created a chest to store our mob farm resources. We're gonna need like over 20 stacks of blocks and a bunch of other stuff, so we have a bit to go, but nonetheless, I crafted some of the other materials we're going to need and put them into this chest. I then headed back into the mines and continued mining for the rest of the day, and for the morning of day 8. But that process was becoming more boring than my life story, so I returned to the surface, expanded our wheat farm, added our new profits to the mob farm materials chest, and then realized there wasn't much else to do with my life, so I headed back into the mines and completely obliterated the Earth's crust for 8 billion years. Yep, that's 100% factual. As I returned to the surface, I had the misfortune of remembering what phantoms were, and like always, these things are gonna be really annoying throughout this challenge. I have no enemies, except phantoms, those things suck. I continued expanding the island by creating another outline a few blocks out and beginning to fill it in. I couldn't afford my mortgage payments anymore, so I held back my tears as I heartlessly and ruthlessly demolished our dirt hut. But I moved through the grieving process rather swiftly with a mere 40 years of therapy, and began chopping down trees on our island on the morning of day 9 because they were annoying me. I then made our storage system look a bit less awful, and then realized I could go ahead and check off some of the 1.21 blocks and items we need to collect. So I placed in some more dirt in this part of the island, and then crafted and placed it down a crafter. I then crafted a crafter using said crafter to get a new 1.21 advancement. Crafters crafting crafters. Pretty crafty if I do say so myself. I'm sorry. Our efforts then finally paid off because a wandering trader had already spawned. He was invisible, but he had a jungle sapling trade, which is the main trade I want other than sugarcane, because I want our base to be jungle themed. So I trapped him in a boat, and then his llamas disappeared. I wonder where they went in such a hurry. Oh, cut. I don't have any way to get emeralds yet, but hopefully this boat prevents the wandering trader from despawning until we get emeralds so we can get that jungle sapling trade. And just to make sure bro survives until then, I built a cobblestone shelter around him. I then expanded our wheat farm more, and now it's day 10, and we're officially 10% of the way through this challenge. And we're making a decent bit of progress so far, but there's still a lot left to do, so on the morning of day 10, I crafted and placed down the copper grates, doors, and trapdoors. I then decided that disgusting creature had a bit too much freedom, so I chained him to this fence post and left him there forever. Once you obtain one singular brain cell, I will release you. So basically, I won't release you. I also attached a boat to a fence post with the other lead I got from the llamas, so yeah. It's pretty cool that you can do that now in 1.21. That feature is going to make transporting villagers once we get them later on a lot easier. Speaking of getting villagers though, we still need to get blocks to build the mob farm so we can actually do that. So I headed back into the mines for another overworked underpaid shift, and I hacked at stone, dirt, and gravel for basically the rest of the day before resurfacing by the end of the day. I then crafted a stone cutter and then crafted some chiseled copper using said stone cutter and placed it into our 1.21 blocks display on the morning of day 11. We almost had enough blocks to build the mob farm, so after placing a bunch more dirt into the island, I headed back into the mines and continued excavating profits from the earth for the rest of the day. Then wasted time extending the mine through this water cave for some reason on the morning of day 12. I continued that process until my brain imploded and then headed back up to the surface. I then committed my daily dose of deforestation for mob farm resources, but mostly to smelt into charcoal for fuel. I then discovered that you can plant saplings on farms. I have no actual idea why I never knew you could do this, but this is absolutely fascinating. I was still lacking funding for my business venture, however, and investors were showing little to no interest. So I took matters into my own hands and headed back into the mines again and proceeded to obliterate stone for basically the rest of the day. And on the morning of day 13, I crafted up the remainder of the materials required to build the mob farm, and then it was finally time to actually build it. I began by bridging out a bit from the island because this farm is going to be mildly atrocious looking. I then began building up with cobblestone until I hit the stratosphere, performed an Olympic dive and broke all the bones in my body, and then constructed a vertical transportation device all the way up the tower. And even though this farm is going to be monumental to making a ton of progress towards our goals in this challenge, I'm sure you've seen this exact farm built literally 1 billion times before, so I'll try to speed through this a bit. I built out a platform at the top of the tower and then began work on the ankle breaking chute before being interrupted by more phantoms. After surviving by cowering in fear, I went to sleep and then watched as the sun burnt my enemies to a crisp on the morning of of day 14. I then headed back to work and completed the folly down chute thing. I then added in the tax collection system, built out the water slides, and then built the platforms. And then realized I made the farm slightly too big and the water didn't reach the end of the water slide. I wasn't really in the mood to undo and then redo everything I just built though, so I just moved the water sources forward and added these wall things along with adding in all the trapdoors so the mobs actually walk into the water channels. I completed that by the end of the day and began adding in the roof on the morning of day 15. And I ran out of cobblestone, so I started just using whatever blocks I could find in my pockets to complete the roof. It doesn't really matter though, we're not gonna see this a lot, so we just need it to be functional. But I ran out of blocks, so I headed back down to the base. But I got distracted harvesting our wheat field and expanding it even more. Wheat is going to be really important though, not only for food, but also for trading with villagers, and most importantly, so we can actually build a villager breeder and get a villager trading hall and populate our island with 100 inhabitants. I then realized that our wandering trader had escaped and his llamas had returned. But actually, the wandering trader just despawned, cause apparently boats don't prevent them from despawning after a certain amount of time. And then somehow another wandering trader spawned soon after that. This would be lucky, but we don't have any emeralds yet, so this is really unlucky if anything. But nonetheless, the llamas mysteriously disappeared and I decided to borrow their leads. And I trapped the wandering trader in a boat in this cobblestone prison just in case we're able to get emeralds in the next few days somehow. Also, his trades weren't that great either. Anyways, I went back to replanting the wheat field and then grabbed some more blocks and headed back up to work on the mob farm. But when I got back up on the morning of day 16, I could hear that mobs were already spawning, even though I'm pretty sure I lit up the platform with torches. So I built up and around to gain the high ground and attack from above. But then I got scared by this creeper and ran away. Once I made my way back up, however, there were no mobs to be found. I'm pretty sure they just despawned and then didn't respawn because it's daytime. I took the W and got back to work on the roof. I also lit up the roof a bit more, and with that, the mob farm is finally complete and we're done with step 5. So I broke out all my scaffolding and the mob farm had already started working. And now it's time for step 6. Cure a zombie villager. Well, actually 2 zombie villagers. First, we need to trap 2 zombie villagers from this mob farm. To cure zombie villagers, you need a potion of weakness and a golden apple. We can make golden apples pretty easily, but a weakness potion would require a brewing stand and blaze powder, which would require going to the nether and finding a nether fortress. But that's time consuming and dangerous, assuming you have a skill issue like myself. But luckily, witches actually have a
ഐസ്ക്രീം കഴിക്കുമ്പോഴെല്ലാം എൻ്റെ പല്ലുകൾക്ക് പുളിപ്പ് അനുഭവപ്പെട്ടിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ഡെന്റിസ്റ്റ്